You go. We're just
Well, welcome to Cross-Cultural Communication, taught by Professor Sean Watts, except right now it's Gwen. Here we go, okay?
thank you.
You're welcome. So a refresher for our topic, what we're talking about is like basically how to best utilize the environment of K-Melon University to study most effectively. So an article I found was called The Effect of Classroom Environment on Student Learning. And they talked about, or the author talked about how the classroom environment and like the teaching environment has an effect on how students learn. And so she said right here that the learning environment plays a crucial role in keeping students engaged and allowing them to be successful within the classroom. So we're going to use this to like, since we know that because of this, that one's environment affects how a student learns, we'll also attempt to find the best environment on campus to study and learn the most effectively. And then another article I found called Attention Drainage Effect, How Background Music Affects Concentration in Taiwanese College Students. What this person studied was how students, they were given a reading task and with different types of background music. And so the author found that the most distracting music was like high frequency, like rap and hip hop. And the students weren't able to concentrate as much with that music. And classical music was less distracting, but it was still found to be more distracting than no music. So this relates to our study because we're going to implement that into our case study and ask students like, oh, what kind of music do you listen to, and see how it affects their study as well. All right, next person, please. Who wrote the yellow in my group?
Me. Scheduling of study time and self-testing was also a significant factor. It plays an important role in real-world student achievement. Self-testing have been demonstrated to be quite effective by Joe Digger and Butler in 2011, but are mentioned less frequently when students report their strategies by Copico 2009. Of course, not all students report using the same strategy due to individual differences that exist between students concerning their study habits. According to Connor and Bjork, in 2007 survey, the majority of students, whatever is due soonest, that the majority of students use quizzes to evaluate how well they have learned course content. Self-testing and other research type activity like using flashcards were commonly reported. Most students reported using self-testing as a metacognitive tool to evaluate their progress and not as a means to boost performance. Although self-testing can serve this to purpose because the metacognitive feedback from self-testing is presumably used to allocate further study time. Also, most students report scheduling practice by focusing on whatever was due soonest. Although individual differences did arise, high performers are more likely to schedule their study ahead of time. Lowest performers are most likely to engage in late night studying and more impending deadlines. Therefore, scheduling study session in spaced manner may afford the use of other strategies, which themselves improve student success. Lastly, self-testing was also relatively popular strategy and was significantly related to student achievement.
Okay, it's my turn.
the main goal of the study is to find what are the best effective learning styles and the strategies for students on learning. So the researchers in the article just say that the goal of learning strategies is to affect the learner's motivational or affective states, or the way in which the learner selects, acquires, organizes, or integrates new knowledge, enabling them to take more responsibility of their own language learning and personal development, which is similar to our own research points. So in relation to the language learning styles, Willing identified 4 major styles: communicative, analytical, authority-oriented, and concrete. So communicative refers to those learning strategies like watching, listening, and talking. And analytical means learners prefer studying grammar, textbooks, and newspapers, and so on. Authority-oriented indicates those learners who prefer the teacher to explain everything, rely heavily much on their textbooks. And concrete refers to those learners who tend to like games, pictures, film, videos, and so on. So based on the 4 learning style methods that the study selected 110 undergraduates at the University of Hong Kong to research whether their attitudes, beliefs, and practices that differentiated learners who did well within the Hong Kong education system from those who did not. Finally, according to the results, they found the dominant style of the most effective learners was communicative. That means those learners are more self-directed and independent, exactly knowing what they want and how to achieve their goals. And on the contrary, the dominant style for the less effective language learners was authority-oriented. They sometimes lacked the motivation for learning and was more passive. So return to our own topic, we can still get some inspirations from the previous article. So we can just refer to the 4 study methods mentioned in the article, and also there are some new styles we can get. This can give us more ideas about our own topic, like direct and indirect learning styles, and visual versus auditory. That means the use of your physical senses for study and work. Your personality, extroversion versus introversion, or the intuitive rhythm versus concrete sequential. So I think these new and creative styles can help us to further supply and perfect our research content in order to help learners take advantage of their learning styles by matching learning strategies with their styles. And at the same time, learners can compensate for the disadvantages of their learning styles to balance their learning by adjusting learning strategies.
There are many effective study methods. Students often find obvious methods: writing and speaking learning materials, when memorizing, getting organized, asking questions, and paying attention in class, reviewing, improving are examples of methods of effective study students can find, think, and hear over time. However, beside basic method, there are researchers that have discovered and proved different methods which actually improve students' learning ability and achievement. First method was peer teaching. Peer teaching, which also can be defined as learning exchange, is an effective way since it enables active knowledge exchange, experience, and different concepts and ideas. The study conducted a survey and measured effectiveness and evaluation from students. Results were promising. Students got more motivation, involved more, efficient thinking, and problem identification through peer teaching. Overall, outcomes showed students got more encouragement and engaged actively. Another research I found was study method of study was about case study. The purpose of the study was to measure the effect of case studies on learning outcomes and attitudes toward instructions. Learning outcomes were assessed by paper-based exam, and attitude toward instructions were measured by attention, relevance, and confidence and satisfaction of the course. at the end of semester among two treatment groups, one knowledge representation treatment and case study treatment. Case study treatment showed relatively higher scores both on knowledge score and application score. Furthermore, students in case study treatment also showed higher scores on attention, relevance, confidence, and satisfaction compared to knowledge representation treatment.
All right, and here are our references. And that's it.
Perhaps you guys remember what I usually do after anyone presents, right? I get you guys to check something.
Ask questions and evaluate us.
Yes, but make sure everybody understands why you as new students, new to presenting, new to communicating with the world, you must make sure that other people understand your point. If you're just talking, be careful. Trust me, I know a lot of students might be falling asleep or daydreaming. So make sure they understand your point. And then check that they understand. You have said a lot. Several of you have a big group, you've said a lot. But does anybody understand what you said? And how can you get feedback from your targets, your listeners, your audience? What feedback can you get to modify it so that the next time you present, which is going to be more important, how can you do it so they understand even more and get more
Does
value?
anybody have any questions?
Can I give some feedback?
Sure, yes.
I just wanted to say, maybe in order to make it more interesting for other people, maybe a PPT would be okay. It doesn't have to be like the best PPT in the world. It just not like, no, but just like to have less information for us to see. Because as you guys were speaking, I was trying to read the text, but then I wouldn't be able to concentrate on either of you. So like what you were saying and what it's written there. So maybe that could help a little bit. And I also wanted to say that the study when found about music that helps students to study, I think it's very interesting, and that could be something very useful for their survey, because I study with music and other people that I know do that too. So it could be something interesting for their research. And that would be all. Me?
Oh, thank you.
Anybody, yes.
Oh, okay.
Thank you for that feedback, by the way.
Guys, thank you so much for your presenting. I mean, it was interesting. I also have some recommendation. Maybe like it was like 2-page or 3-page more. So maybe you can like highlight the main parts so we can follow. So I was also a little bit confusing by reading when you speak, but generally it was like very interesting presentation, and I have learned a lot, especially the study methodologies which help students to achieve best in their university life, like peer teaching, case study, how they analyze, and how the result was good. That peer teaching helped the students to study effective, and then a case study help the students to get high score. So this is what I understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have such an active group today. How about I go through this? Mohammed Arfin Zubai, are you in class today? Do I see you? I don't see you in class. How about Im Min Gyu? Are you in class today? Im Min Gyu, going once, going twice. Also not in class. Bogodege, Chathru Rangi Kik something. Are you in class today? Okay, I'm just going to go through this. Kevin Johnny, can you tell me what did they teach you? Not about each different journal, but what was their one lesson to you to learn? Kevin Johnny, I see you're in class. Can you please answer us? Or if you are not participating, I can go to the next person. Kim Min Jung, how about you? Are you going to participate in class today?
Yes, I am.
Great. Can you tell the class what it was that that group taught the world? Not asking, like they presented many different references and what the references were about, but what is the one common thing they taught the world?
You mean the very important thing, the very core?
Yes, yes. Anytime you make a presentation online to other people, you should focus on saying one main thing. You can say two or three main things, but any more than three, as soon as you start talking about four or more topics, they're going to forget the details. They might pick up one thing that's small and forget your main point. So I'm asking you, do you remember what was their main point? What was their main lesson?
How the best way to study effectively?
That's the topic, not what the lesson is. Like, what did they teach you? Do you know what is the best way? Anybody?
Can I speak? It's Zarnigar.
Sure, yes.
I listened to to all of them while they were presenting, and I feel like they chose like really interesting topic, which was like really kind of considered by a lot of people that what's the best way to study, and like everyone considers it for a long time. And the best part I paid attention is studying this music, which I do it myself as well. And right now the lo-fi, I don't know how to pronounce it, like hip hop tracks are like really like on the top list for helping students or learners to concentrate. And while some other people love to study in quiet, I think it really depends on a person. And they talked about like how music can be helpful to learn efficiently, and I really loved the point, like where they were talking about it and giving more details on it.
Thank you, Zarnigar. I understand Somin Kim and Wang Wan Ki and Wang Wel Duk Kang and Gwen, 4 people in your group. Was that your lesson? Were you trying to teach the world that the world should be studying with music? Is that your main point? Because 2 people, that's what they sort of understood.
Well, it's like a general, like a lot of things influence how you learn. And I mean, music can be one of them. That's what we're here to find out.
Can I add something too, sir?
Sure.
Well, it's literature review that we did. So we were trying to find many articles about what can help effective study method, what can be effective study method, and music can be one of them, and the other stuff, they are one of them. And the lesson that we will give we will provide will be at the end of the final material, which we will find according to the survey that we will do. So the core stuff didn't come out yet, and I think you can expect really interesting results.
Thank you. But when you usually, in my opinion, each sentence you're saying when you're making a presentation should be related to what you're trying to teach. And the introduction is talking about why that thing you're trying to teach is important, the importance of the background of what you're trying to teach, why nobody else knows that information. Your literature review should be showing, again, you're trying to teach something because the literature isn't really saying something. You have talked about many different points, but if you continue to talk about many different things, some of your message, as we just saw, you might get lost. Why is it important? Like in the past, they were saying that, yes, you can have an introduction and then maybe 3 different examples and a conclusion. Yes, you learn that at introduction level. But living online, when you're communicating online, 2021, 2022, how long do you stay in a YouTube video before, if you think they're talking about something unrelated to your interest, you continue to stay and listen, or do you just skip to the next YouTube video? People usually last less than 15 seconds, and more importantly, most people last less than 7 seconds. A lot of people will last less than 3 seconds before they jump to some other TikTok video or interactions. So try to make sure your main point is clear in a lot of what you're doing. With that said, I look forward to hearing your final conclusion going forward. We'll later talk about in week 6, 7, 8, and 9 the details of how surveying may help get information and help with the cross-cultural communications. But yeah, we can talk about that stuff later. Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you for volunteering, since I haven't heard anybody talk about marks yet. I love the fact that you guys, 4 of you all volunteered to do that out of the goodness of your heart, even without relation to class. That was a hint. You should be asking people to evaluate you.
Oh, hey, anyone want to evaluate us?
Maria had a big smile on her face.
Yeah, sure, I'll do it. I think 13, 14 would be really good. Because yeah, as Professor just said, we kind of got lost in the main point of the whole project. So yeah, maybe there can be some improvement as to that point. And yeah, 13 to 14, I think it would be pretty good.
Great. All right, Hua, did you say that there were many other groups that wanted to present today? What's the next group?
Maria, is that your group?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can start your screen now.
I'll share my screen. Okay. So our project is cultural differences within the student body at Kimi University, and okay, here's the background literature. First, we found this article called Cultural Learning, Theory and Globalization, Reconceptualizing Culture Shock for Modern Cross-Cultural Sojourners. Now here, the author talks about the stages of going to another country to live there, as we already saw in the class, so I'm not gonna really talk about it, but there's the 4 stages. Now, what I found really interesting in this study is that he says recent technologies have helped in experiencing less cultural shock and more cultural learning. So I interpret this as not experiencing that much anxiety about living in another country, and the new technologies actually help that, because, for example, here in Korea. Like I don't speak much Korean, so when I have to communicate with people, sometimes it's very difficult. But having translator apps on my phone actually helps. That way, it's easier to communicate with people. It's not like the best experience in communication, but it actually helps. So that's what we found in this study. In the next study, it's understanding elementary and secondary students' representation of cultural differences as reflected in the process of intercultural communication. I understand that we are not elementary and secondary students anymore, but what I found interesting is that this study in particular talks about school, like classrooms in a school, which is what we are going for in this project, in a school environment. So what they found here is that immigrant students show homesickness. This was a study made in Spain. And foreign students show homesickness, feelings of isolation, and attitudes of avoidance. In our survey, it would be really great to discover if international students actually feel this way also. But one of the main obstacles is the language barrier, which, as I just said, it's very important for international students. And in this study, they also say tolerance and empathy is an important tool for intercultural communication. So this is what we found here. In the next study, it talks mostly about food and drink being an important way of communicating among teams, among groups that have people from many different countries. So they say food and drink is a material manifestation of culture and have the power to separate or integrate groups. So integration comes when eating brings together like a group of people, like saying, oh, hey, let's have some lunch together tomorrow. But it actually separates a group when, for example, I could be worried I might not like some type of food because I'm not used to it. So that's how food and drink works in multicultural groups. And I found this phrase very interesting. Its cultural differences pose a challenge for groups which, to perform well, have to achieve social integration and communicate effectively. This is just to show how important cultural difference are, which is like what our whole project is going for. So this is the next one, and Minjin is going to tell you about this.
This paper, Managing, Assessing, and Forecasting Algorithm for the Exchange Students Adaptation Monitoring. This paper assess criteria for foreign students' adoption and development and disruption, especially in Russia. So this research method help predict and management for exchange student. And this means we can develop better support system for foreign student adaptation process. And next paper. The highs and lows of a cultural transition, a long picture analysis of sojourner stress and adaptation assessed across 50 countries. This paper follows approximately 2,500 intercultural exchange students in 50 different countries, and analysis both before and during their travel. They examine the stress and adjustment over time. And it's it's before and the consequences. It doesn't show how we should adjust their stress, but it shows how the stress moving during the time and emphasize the importance of controlling stress for exchange students. And next paper. It's intercultural communication and barriers in Malaysian public universities. The mediating effect of intercultural willingness to communicate. This paper studied that how intercultural willingness to communicate affect student adaptation in Malaysia. Lower level of anxiety and uncertainty and ethnocentrism make better intercultural willingness to communication. And in contrast, high level of anxiety and ethnocentrism and uncertainty will reduce students' IWTC, this intercultural willingness to communication. So we have to reduce anxiety, uncertainty, and ecocentrism first to communicate in foreign to foreign students.
Okay, so I found one article that seems very interesting to us that we can compare to what may be happening in Kim Il-sung University. So this is the problem of adaptation of foreign students studying in Russian universities. So the goal of this article is to analyze scientific sources and the specifics of social cultural adaptation of foreign students, which should be taken into account within communication and studying. So in this paper, they made two tests, as you can see on screen. In order to identify sociocultural specifics of adaptation of foreign students, they have conducted a continuous sampling social study through survey by handout questionnaires. 120 foreign students of a polytechnic higher educational institution were interviewed. In particular, among advantages that students will mention when recommending a university to their acquaintances is being easy to study here. But among the reasons that would stop them from recommending a university are social troubles, poorly equipped laboratories, and language problems. So according to the results of the first research, students evaluate certain aspects of studying rather highly. So this is table 1, so the level of satisfaction of different aspects of studying on a 1 to 5 scale. Whereas in table 2, foreign students were offered to evaluate several aspects of their life conditions on a scale of 1 to 5. So dormitory, as you can see, dormitory and medical care received the lowest rates. One of the most important indicators of life quality in another country is general level of safety for foreigners. It can be said that foreign students feel rather safe in the university, although 18% rated it as low. So this is rate 1 and 2 on table 2. And as for domestic problems, students complained about poor living conditions, including the condition of toilets, windows, problems with the shower or hot water. So that was for this paper. Here's
Yes, and
our
here
references.
are our references. And that will be all.
Thank you. Anybody want to discuss with what we just said?
Can I ask a simple question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Minjin's part, the Russian criteria. Can you go back to the?
Wait.
Yeah.
Wait.
Yeah, that one. I think.
Is it this one?
Next one.
Next one.
No, the chart on the left.
Oh, chart. Okay.
Yeah.
First one, I think.
There you go.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
When was that criteria made?
It was, I think, just 1 second, please.
Very good point. Identifying the reference material is incredibly important. If something was made in 1750, it's different than something made in 2021, right?
It's 2018.
Oh, then it's kind of new stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, then I think it's valid. Thank you.
Does it make a difference? Do you guys, what I think you're talking about is new references are good, old references are bad, but you're talking about school stuff, right? Students studying. How has the practice of studying changed, or how has the practice of teaching, or even more generally, how has education changed in the last 100 or 200 years? Not very much. Anyway, sorry, I should be quiet. Keep going. Find out if your listeners listened to anything. We have one listener. What about the rest? What did they understand?
I don't know, anyone wants to make a comment?
Stop! How many times? Okay, one of you, I think it was Jungmin Jin, you talked about ethnocentrism. Please explain what that means.
Ethnocentrism is like my culture is first, and ignore other culture or devaluate other cultures. So I don't want to understand other culture, and I don't know, promote my culture. No, not promote. Yeah, my culture is best, kind of that.
Do you know any ethnocentric people?
My mother.
Your mother? Did Jules just yell out, Sean Watts, incredibly ethnocentric old son of a me? Maybe. Why am I talking about that? Is it completely off topic, but is a professor allowed to say, I love you guys, but maybe if I say I love you, some people will think it's sexual harassment or something like that. So I'm not going to say that. You guys are awesome students, but what are you all missing? Every time somebody's presenting in our class, I keep hearing, does anybody have questions? What is the culture where we are in Korea? What does that require you actually say? Maria, you started saying, does anyone have questions? Thank you. You're an awesome leader. You started the group. You're answering this question. So I'm going to attack you. What does it mean in Korea, or what should you expect in Korea when any teacher says, does anyone have questions?
No one says anything.
Right. So why do you do it? Min Jung, what did you just teach? Sorry. By doing things your way, it is ethnocentric. You guys are ethnocentric. No, I'm not allowed to say I love you guys. You guys are great guys, but you're ethnocentric. So what do we need to do?
But I think most of foreign students ask, do you have any questions?
Okay, if 100 people jump off a bridge, are you going to follow and jump off too? If 1,000 people are dying of coronavirus, but a few people start going to a building to meet, are you going to follow too? Or are you going to do what you learned is best? You're supposed to work with the audience around you. And yes, this is a very international class. So you guys are saved. Maria is saved because she's talking not to only Koreans, she's talking to international people, so she's safe. But most people in our class don't usually talk. So make sure you check yourself. You're learning how to communicate with other people, great. But are you doing anything to change how you know we are ethnocentric? We are born what way? Jules, we're not ethnocentric when we're born, right? Ethnocentric is only what you are after you've learned there is another way. There is other culture. There are other cultures. So how are you when you were born? It's natural. So it has to be good, but at the same time, it's really, really bad. What is that called? Before ethnocentric? Anybody? Anyone in class? I'm doing it right now. What about Gyeongganjang or Kavanjani? What is your cultural state when you were born? Maria, can you help them?
I'm just thinking about like, okay, the state when you're born, well, you have no culture actually, because you were just born, something like that.
Well, you have only one culture, right?
Okay.
You have only that one way. So what is that called? After you get older, after you go to school, after you learn, then you become ethnocentric. But the first one is like the lowest level, the failing grade is parochial. You start parochial and then you become ethnocentric, but ethnocentric is bad. You know there's other ways, but you still only do your way. So we must all understand what is our way and then start focusing on how you're going to change. How are you adapting to somebody else? Sorry, Maria, can't say I love you. You're an awesome student, but you're not only being ethnocentric by asking that normal question for our class, but what else? Most people, they just talk and then they finish. You're not checking anybody else understands you. If you go to, I don't know, what is it? I don't think I see anybody from Kenya here. I used to stay in Kenya. I was living in Kenya for a while. Jambo is hello in Swahili, but if you start meeting Kenyans or people that communicate in Swahili, can you do the same thing? Can you just present and then stop? Will they understand you? What do you need to do? You need to check throughout your presentation. Many people, they just talk, and then finish. I got my mark, I'm finished. Yeah, that's how schools usually work. But you guys are studying schools, and schools haven't changed in like 1,000 years or a long time ago, hundreds of years ago. So be aware. Anybody else before I continue evaluating some details? Anybody else in class?
Can I add a comment again?
You sure can.
Well, first of all, I think the point of being an exchange students, they expect to not only like learn in university and abroad, but also they want to experience cultures and see how their education system is different from their own. But I think it would be interesting to see how COVID-19 changed that a bit, because every class became offline class. Well, it will be online soon, but it will be offline soon. But how like last year and this year, every class were run through online, by internet. So I think it would be interesting to see how international students got different experience or affected by COVID-19 and all this social distancing. That would be interesting too.
That'd be awesome. You would probably have hundreds or thousands or millions of people calling you up to advise them because anyway, good point. Yes. Maria, Minjung, and Jules, I believe this was your show. Any other comments from you guys? Would you guys like to say something before I start taking over again?
Well, I just wanted to say that suggestions, I think it's really great. It would be interesting to see how all of this has changed with COVID. So yeah, we're gonna look into that. Thank you.
Jules, did you start to say something?
I said it was okay for me.
So again, you're happy with volunteering to give your presentation for no marks. Do you know how you need to modify your presentation next time so that some audience better understands you? Next time you go to any country in the world and you make any presentation in any other foreign country, what do you need to change so that you realize the listener will understand you?
Make the support of the presentation, like right now our PPT must be really sober, remove all the unnecessary text. There has to be really low text and much more images, maybe. So the listeners are listening to what you say, and just like Maria said, not reading what is on the screen. Also,
so you love who was it? The Apple guy, Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs, that kind of presentation. But how many times do you watch a movie in a foreign language only with the picture? Don't you appreciate subtitles? Don't you appreciate having text that you might be able to help understand?
Yes, but there's a difference because the text say the same thing as the talk, but what's written on the screen, sometimes it's not the same thing as it's not the same thing that is being said. So you are listening to one thing and then you are reading another thing, and maybe you get confused.
I definitely don't know what's the proper answer to what we're talking about right now. Hopefully you guys understand. Like Rosie, do you understand what Jules and I are talking about? The idea that Jules is saying we should copy the Steve Jobs presentation style, only show a PPT with interesting images, maybe 3 or 4 words tops, a very brief point form. But I was saying our whole focus is not presenting to other Americans. Our focus is how we can interact with people around the world, cross-cultural communications. If you're communicating with a new culture, wouldn't more words help them understand you, especially if they don't understand your sound or your dialect or how you're speaking? If somebody can read some of the details, does that make sense to you, Rosie?
Yeah, and I would kind of agree with you, especially if it's a language that's not the audience's first language. So it might be better to have a bit more text, not just a few words and pictures.
So what do you say, Jules? Is she just kissing my butt because I'm the professor, or do you want to defend yourself more?
I want to keep with what I said. Yeah. Because of
have
course,
a fight, Rosie, Jules, fight, online fight.
I mean, I understand if it's a language they speak fluently, the audience, because then they can focus more on what's being said as opposed to just being bombarded with all this text on the PowerPoint. But if it's, for example, a language they don't speak fluently, or it's not their main language, then it might help if it doesn't have to be paragraphs on the PowerPoint, but just like the main points in like a few more words than just 1 or 2 in pictures. So if they do not understand what the person is, for example, saying, or they might miss something, at least they have the main points that they can read, so it's easier to understand. So you should adapt it more to your audience, I say.
Okay. So here's what I have to say about that. I think we agree on the fact that if it's not your main language and you don't really understand what's being said, it's cool to have words. But as you said, the PPT needs to not be filled with words.
Yeah.
Sentence. That's not digestible. But on the other hand, I think that if you are really interested in a presentation and you can't understand what's being said by oral, then why are you following this presentation in the first place? If you cannot understand.
Learn something new, I would suppose.
Yeah, okay.
Can I also say my opinion? Just a real quick. I really agree with Jules when it comes to talking about like presenting to people that they don't speak the language, because they can understand more from the image. And then I was also thinking about like if they don't speak the language and then we put a lot of words, how they are going to be able to translate all of them and keep up with the same, like the track of the content at the same time. So I guess like putting like the main 2 or 3 words and then putting the main picture that can describe the main point, and then just kind of like saying about like what the picture is showing or the presentation is talking is way easier to talk, and then like make people understand what's going on. So I agree with Jules and his point of view.
Sarnigar, can you help me teach a little bit more? Maybe can you make a couple of comments? Do you see what I'm showing on your screen? Why could this be important? How could you work with this? Isn't there a middle ground where haven't you guys been to some really, really good presentations before where they hand out details in advance?
Yeah, that was going to be my next point. Like, if you want to have the few points on the PowerPoint, and if you want to go an extra mile, it'll give them a handout or something with more information on it.
Absolutely. So why the heck aren't any of you posting? You're supposed to be members of this group, but you're not actually posting. Look at some of these other ones. You have not only many members that are connected in the same group, but the number of files that other students studying the same thing have been sharing. It's just incredible. You should benefit from not just being able to talk to anybody in the world, not just about being able to communicate with anybody in the old-fashioned way of talking, but you can use social media. We have Zoom, and at the same time, if you don't want to talk, you can post your things here, and you should. You can probably get extra marks doing this. And if you go to these extra files, you can get extra points for this stuff too. This group has just some files, but there is more information in some of the other groups. Does that make sense, Jules? You can have maybe a PPT with less words, but then when you are presenting, whatever you're presenting, you can have notes at the bottom, right? Has any of you put notes at the bottom?
Professor.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but can you present our presentation?
You sure can, yes. Please go ahead.
Because we don't have a lot of time. Can you allow me to share my screen?
Has that not already been done? I thought that was done at the beginning of class. So it's who?
Sir, Professor, our group also want to present today.
Okay, I think both of you guys already have co-hosting capabilities, so why are you waiting? I'm talking just as long as nobody else is actually presenting. I think you already have co-hosting ability. You can share your information. Anybody need to share or want to share that cannot for some reason?
Can you give me access to share?
Okay, I think you have access. while we get ready for Ulukbek's presentation, we are week 5, week 6, 7, 8, and 9 is talking about how you can check your understanding, check what other people think, or surveying. Please let me know if you would like any information about how to survey, or where to survey, or what are some good survey methods. Go ahead, Ulukbek.
Professor, I will start. Hello, everyone. Here's our literature review. Understanding the influence of artificial intelligence in the tourism and the medical industry. Next slide. Yeah, here our table of content, little introduction, literature review of 7 Scopus articles and references. Artificial intelligence has been involved in the medicine since as early as the 1950s, where physicians made the first attempt to improve their diagnosis using computer-aided programs. Artificial intelligence is gradually changing medical practices. There are several AI applications in medicine that can be used in a variety of medical fields, such as clinical diagnostic, rehabilitative, surgical, and predictive practices. So the article, the potential use of digital health technologies in the African context. And then the findings in this article, we analyze the key benefits and the challenges associated with the use of digital health for health system, strengthening and contribution towards the attainment of in Africa and other African countries like Ethiopia. And because of the poverty and low per capita income, they can't afford the good healthcare. So, and also the lack of digital health technology in the health sector. So the situation is that's why the potential use of digital health technologies in the African countries. And the second topic article, rise of clinical studies in the field of machine learning. This paper describes the best analysis of machine learning related studies, a sub-area of artificial intelligence in which computer algorithm and statistical models are trained based on a large database to independently link and predict abnormalities. So,
our next article is COVID-19 pandemic waves for fourth industrial revolution technology utilization in multi-sector economy, which is published on Sustainability Switzerland in 2021. And this paper helps us to describe utilizing smart boots to prevent infections, smart health bands, and smart disinfection tunnels or walk-through sanitization gates in the mining work environment. And our next article is improving global healthcare and reducing costs using second-generation artificial intelligence based on digital pills, which is published on International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health in 2021. We focused on almost new articles, and this article helps us to now about artificial intelligence system with a branded or generic drug improves the patent response to drugs by increasing adherence and overcoming the loss of response to chronic medication. Our next paper is professionals' response to the introduction of AI innovations in radiology and their implications for future adoption, a qualitative study, which is published on BMC Health Service Research magazine in 2021. This paper aims to explore the knowledge, awareness, and attitudes towards AI amongst professional groups in radiology and to analyze the implication for the future adoption of these technologies into practice. And our next article is Service Robots in the Healthcare Sector, which is published on Robotics magazine in 2021. And also this paper presents a review of various types of robotic technologies and their uses in the healthcare sector. Our last article is a review of artificial intelligence, big data, and blockchain technology applications in medicine and global health, which is published on Big Data and Cognitive Computing magazine in 2021. This paper describes big data, blockchain technology, and their importance in medicine, healthcare, public health, surveillance, case estimations in COVID-19 pandemic and other epidemics. This is our reference, and thank you for your attention.
I'm not trying to look sexy, Beck. That was a hint. Are you trying to look sexy and just show off? What are you supposed to be doing now? Check other people understand your message, appreciate your message was understood. And if you are maybe more focused on marks than Jules' group, they just volunteered. Maybe you also wanted to check what they would evaluate you as. Or we can just go to the next group.
Can I ask a question? What was your topic?
Our topic is understanding the influence of AI in the healthcare industry, not in tourism.
Healthcare industry. Oh,
yes.
I just want to comment that your articles, they are pretty brand new, and the use of AI in medical fields is kind of like brand new concept that is rising right now. So I believe there will be some shortcomings to your research because it's kind of brand new idea and it's still ongoing. The results aren't really released right now. So I think I just want to ask you if there were any like findings that you found which can be called as results by like use of AI in medication or in in drug related field.
Yes, actually, as you said, the research have been going on right now, but we want to focus on the result by now.
So is yet to see the result?
Yes,
the use
we
of
want to.
the use because of the use of AI, the efficiency and the healthcare like surgeries, the efficiency is high after the use of artificial intelligence in the medical field.
Also, it's actually improving right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Can I make a comment? It's a very short comment. Firstly, I like envy you because I was so difficult to find like newly raised articles in my topics. So it's good, but I don't really understand about the concept of healthcare AI. Do you give me any example of that?
Uh,
If nobody else does, I can. The idea of anybody getting sick for healthcare, you usually go to the hospital and you ask one person that studied about medicine maybe 10 or 20 years ago. So number one, their information is limited. Medical doctors usually only study about 2 or 3 years in a university classroom, and then they start getting into practical studying in a hospital. So what they know is limited to not only one person, but old information. The alternative, AI, is a computer connected to the planet. So anybody that is starting to put information in about healthcare, now AI knows. And so AI knows more than most doctors. And so when you put a X-ray onto a screen or patient symptoms into a computer, AI can automatically tell what every other person on the planet that has connected to the internet put that information in. AI is now showing patients' healthcare results much faster, much better, and much more accurate than almost any doctor, even the specialists of the world. So AI is working. The idea of AI coming to impact you, it's already here. You guys just don't know it yet. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and does AI also operate any surgery? Like a robot?
Save that question for the next class. We only have 5 minutes left. And Melissa, group 1 to present. Can you share your screen?
I've put a few notes for students. Please make sure when you're going forward, you have to be proactive. Sitting quietly, being obedient is not really good internationally. Talk more in class, especially if you want marks.
Can I start my presentation?
We're waiting for you, yes.
Okay. So hi everyone, our group is going to talk about the part of background today. And first, according to the 2018-19 World Wage report released by the International Labor Organization, there is hourly gender wage gap of 16 to 19% worldwide, which reflects the huge gender pay gap all over the world. And the report also shows that the gender wage gap was larger in high-income countries, while the gender wage gap was larger in low-income countries with many female workers. And in Korea, women have lower wage levels than men. And Kim Eun-hwa and Park Ka-young also argue that women are receiving lower wage compensation than their productivity levels. And Ki-hong Park writes that the proportion of wage discrimination was about 38 to 43%. And Lim Na-young and Chin Min-ji analyzed found that the proportion of high-income women in male-concentrated occupation had a significant negative effect on the gender residual wage gap in occupations. Another finding was that gender wage gap in the culture and the arts sector is smaller than that of the manufacturing industry, but they also exist in this sector. And on the other hand, many studies have been reported abroad that the proportion of female executive is high, or the wage or promotion gap is more in companies led by female leaders. And in the case of Korea, there are few prior studies related to this, so intensive research is required in this future. And let's hope. Lisa, please. Yes, and this page is the references about the literature background. That's all.
Okay, so we have two groups that volunteered to present, not looking for a grade. Thank you. I will go ahead and start talking unless you want to be more proactive. If anybody does want to try to understand that, let me know. Damon, do you understand what I just said? Can you repeat what I said because maybe I wasn't clear? What did I just say?
Sorry, and
Muklisa, I believe you're in that group too. And Kyungganjung, if you're in that group too, can you guys tell me what it was I just said?
If anyone want to present, they should have to go on.
And the idea, if you want marks, check what your class is giving you for marks. But if you don't want marks, no problem, I'll start presenting. So since our class is almost finished, I do have notes on everybody presenting. Some people, as you can see, have marks. Some people do not. Make sure you avoid this type of thing, just presenting without checking somebody understands. That is maybe parochial or ethnocentric, but it's not obviously the best way for cross-cultural communications. There are many ways to present in our class file. If you go to the actual class materials, you will see that there is a file talking about how to survey. Why I'm talking about this, it also says in this file named how to survey, how to actually manage your class so you can interact better with other people, or how to study. So realize week 6, week 7, week 8, and week 9, especially week 8, is when you should be trying to have cross-cultural communications with other people, surveying other people, checking other people agree with what you're saying. And this shows how to do it. We learn with textbook, we learn with articles, but it's more useful to learn from the organizations you want to work with in the future, especially if you're smart. So for this reason, I encourage you to do a paper with an organization or interacting with an organization. You can meet people with develop relationships, but at the beginning, start in week 6, start in week 7, so you don't bother those top executives with the first question you have. Check your question is good. After you ask the questions, ask those participants what they thought of your survey. How could you improve your survey? It was something maybe silly with your survey, because you don't want to go to a company and have your communication, which is a young student without experience, presented as a young, inexperienced way. You want to sound like a professional, so get it checked. Same as you're presenting in our class, get your information checked by others. So you can go through, you can read these details. It also talks about how you can interact with different companies. You know, the idea that you should not talk too much when you're trying to interact with somebody that's very valuable. Learn mostly from them, listen mostly to them. That goes for the presenters, right, Jules, right, Damon, right, Lisa? When you're presenting, you should be trying to listen to the audience as much as possible, not just presenting any information and walking away. You lose a lot of benefit if you only present or talk and then do nothing. So if we go through this, this actually, there's a lot of details here. What it is Hofstede. Who is Hofstede? What is Hofstede? Can I get Tobias? Can you tell me who is Hofstede? Or yes, sir. Can you tell me who is Hofstede? Minjin Jung. Anybody? Huang Wangi. Can you tell me who is Hofstede? Anybody listening?
I don't know. I don't know who is Hofstede. Sorry.
Okay. everyone in class, you should understand that the idea of communicating with other cultures, cross-cultural communication, you must understand culture. You must understand your culture and other cultures. So what is culture? One of the world's best researchers named Hofstede identified there's at least 4 or 6 parts to culture. And this is his survey. So you can go through it. It's in Korean and it's in English. These are the questions he uses. You can see what type of questions are good. I have highlighted in yellow something that's good, something that's gray is not so good. You can go through and see what type of questions he has. And then you can not only do that, but understand why you're doing this surveying, how you can make a good international communication presentation. That is all explained here. So with that said, we are at the end of class. There's lots of details. Here is the article I was talking about that presents generally just 2. One book is referenced and then another book is referenced, and he compared that. He went and he surveyed something like 25 different students from 4 different countries. That's it. That's his paper. And the paper is like a genius paper. It's considered top quality, but you should understand how is it created? The idea that he has targeted specific journals many times: Asia Pacific Journal of Management, Asia Pacific Journal of Management, Asia Pacific Journal of Management. Why? Understand that. We'll talk about it next class. And the idea of promoting yourself. That helps quite a lot. So, Tobias, any